Hello everyone, I'm Matt and today I'm going to be arguing why the world is a more dangerous place today than it was in the past. The world was a safer place in the past because people looked out for one another and people were also not afraid to get involved. Also, social media incites people towards violence more than it did in the past. And finally, there is more violence that we see on stuff like TV or even video games. So the people in the past felt the world was much safer and less violent than it is now. To give you some context on this, people in the past were not afraid to confront wrongdoing. Parents even welcomed other people for disciplining their children because it stopped anything that they were trying to do, which was wrong. Today, we see much more violence on TV, like in the movies we watch, or even video games. And also, social media makes it very easy for people to spread false information to large groups on where and when to meet, so they could host events that could potentially protest and become violent. So for my first argument, I spoke to my parents and grandmother about what it was like living in the past. So they told me people cared more about one another than they used to do in the past. They also had like a sense of community. So they all came together and would make sure everyone was okay. This prevented crimes in the early stages because everyone knew each other and they were not afraid to stand up and confront someone doing something wrong. Also, people back then had more respect for authority than they do nowadays. Kids didn't talk back as much because they feared they would get a punishment when they got back home. Even respect towards authorities were much higher. For example, respect towards police, parents, elders, or even teachers were much higher due to these reasons. For my second argument, social media is an easy way for people to commit violence because they spread false information on there. An example of this was about the insurrection at the Capitol, where ex-President Trump went to social media that the election was stolen. All of Trump's supporters took to their own social media and gave information on where to meet up and when so they could protest. So on the day of the insurrection, Trump even made a speech riling up his supporters that they need to take back the election that he thought was stolen from him. So misinformation on social media is a big problem on social media. It can lead people to believe things that are not really true. By posting conspiracy theories, it causes more rage for people, which leads to more violence. For my third argument, we see more violent images nowadays on TV, movies we watch, and video games than we used to in the past. In the past, TV movies always had the hero win in the end. Nowadays, they would have the villains win sometimes and lead it to a sequel to make you watch more. Also, graphic images were not shown and they left it to people's imagination. Nowadays, we would see all the graphic images and used to not see that in the past. Also, in the past, the stories were more family friendly. Nowadays, that's not so much the case anymore. So today, we have TV, movies, and video games that romanticize crime and violence. Like a movie, for example, Scarface. There's a bunch of shooting, blah, blah, people dying all around you. And look at the games that there's out there nowadays. We got Grand Theft Auto. We got Call of Duty. All these games were also, on top of like Scarface, was talking about shooting. And it was also inciting robberies, which young kids are even playing nowadays, and it might incite more violence. And for example, in our shows we watch, Another example I'll give you is Criminal Minds. This show is talking about all the villains and stuff and showing all the crazy cases that are going on, even if it's for entertainment. But people can look at this and it could incite more violence nowadays. So, in conclusion, the world has become more dangerous today than it was in the past. People do not get involved today when they used to in the past. People do not respect authority as much anymore as they did in the past. Also, social media makes it easy to spread false information and incite people to be more violent. And finally, graphic images on TV, movies, and video games desensitize people towards violence. The world is more dangerous today than it was in the past because violence is more common in everything that we see today.